Hi everybody, I hope that you're all doing well. So today I am back to do Grace from GK Reads' original tag, the Love Actually tag. However, of course, it is Vlogmas, so once again I am stepping back to show you my Christmas jumper. I don't think I've shown this one in a proper stand-up video yet. I know it's featured on a vlog at least, but this is basically my favourite Christmas jumper. This is the Christmas jumper that I wear every Christmas day. So as you can see, it's a lovely little grey, white and pink number. Little Christmas trees, little reindeers that are kissing each other, snowflakes. Oh, it's so pretty. I've had this jumper for about 4 or 5 years now and I wear this every single Christmas day. I go over to my sister's house, I have a nice lovely pink coat on which just goes so well with it and I feel nice and fancy on the day. But back to business, I am here to do Grace's Love Actually book tag. Now you will know from my favourite Christmas movies video that I did a few days ago that Love Actually, it's not just one of my favourite Christmas movies, it is one of my favourite movies just period. Me and my mum watch it multiple times a year. We've actually been to see the Love Actually concert where they have the orchestra. And the other thing that I love about Love Actually is that it is so quotable. Maybe not on the same level as things like Mean Girls or Clueless, but I feel like it's quite high up there. There are so many lines and different expressions from Love Actually that me and my mum especially say to each other in day-to-day life, and that's really what Grace's tag is honouring, all of those very, very quotable moments. So to start off, question number 1, Christmas Octopus. What book has the best twist / most unexpected book that you've read this year? And I just felt like I wanted to answer for both sides of this question, and I feel like for most unexpected book that I've read this year, I have to say Lanny by Max Porter. This is a book that I picked up this year feeling almost 100% certain that I was not going to like it. I'd heard a lot of people talking about how experimental it was and that it's almost like stream of consciousness. I'd seen lots of different people explaining this and also showing the actual pages of the book and, you know, the way that the text swirls around and it's all very much to do with thoughts just swirling around the page. And I thought, nah, I'm not gonna like that. But because so many people had said how fantastic this book was, I felt like I just had to give it a go and see for myself. And I ended up really, really enjoying this. I thought this was just such a charming story. And actually the writing is not overly experimental and weird. It's really easy to wrap your head around once you've read a couple of chapters. So yeah, highly recommend this one. And then in terms of a book with a good twist, now I don't tend to read a lot of mystery or thrillers, books that typically tend to have big twist endings. So this was a little bit of a hard one for me, but then I remembered that I read The Outcast of Time by Ian Mortimer. This is one that I actually did a solo book review for about a month ago, so I will link that down below. This is a story about 2 brothers in the 14th century who are escaping the Black Death. They end up contracting the illness themselves, but then hear a mysterious voice which gives them a choice to either spend their last 6 days on Earth in the 14th century or to be transported 99 years into the future every succeeding day. They end up choosing the latter option and end up having to contend with the new inventions and new customs of the future. I'm sure I do explain it a lot better in the book review, so definitely check that out. But this had a twist halfway through the book that I did not see coming, and I actually gasped when I read it. I thought it worked really well. I was not expecting it. It really upped the stakes and was just so emotional to read. So highly recommend. Question number 2 is based on a Keira Knightley line in the film, and just give me one moment. This is my Keira Knightley Love Actually hat. I look quite pretty. And the question for that is, what's the prettiest book cover you've read this year? Now I have actually done a few videos this year talking about the most beautiful books, and one that is either coming or has just gone up is about the most beautiful books that I've read in 2020. So I don't want to repeat those videos too much, but I just had to mention Miss Austen by Jill Hornby. And in fact, I'm pretty sure that I mentioned this in my mid-year book freakout tag, but I can't help it. This is just a stunning, stunning book. So of course you've got the front cover, which is beautiful in itself. It's got the embroidery design, but then you take off the dust jacket, and what's on the end papers a beautiful embroidered kind of design too, but you take off the dust jacket and it is as if the embroidery on the front is also on the back. You're seeing like the stitch work that would have been there if this was a real embroidered design. And I just thought that was so clever, and like they didn't need to do that in the book design, but they did, and I appreciate that extra effort. Okay, taking this off now. Question number 3 is, I hate Uncle Jamie. I hate Uncle Jamie. I hate Uncle Jamie. What's the most disappointing book you've read this year? I actually found it kind of hard to think about my most disappointing book, because whilst there have definitely been like 1-star, 2-star books that I've read this year, I often will go into a book feeling like I'm not gonna like it, which sounds very pessimistic, but it's kind of like to prepare myself just in case I don't like it. And I feel like it's a fairly good system because it means that I'm not overly disappointed with a book, but then if I do like it, it's a pleasant surprise. A lot of the books that I've read this year and not liked so much have have not been real disappointments because I didn't have the highest expectations anyway, or they were like a little bit experimental for me, so I wasn't sure if I was gonna like them. So I was trying to think of something where I felt really like it was a gut punch that I didn't like the book. And even then, I couldn't really touch upon an entire book. But something I wanted to mention was just one particular section of the book, Queens of the Conquest by Alison Weir. This is a book that basically gives you a whistle-stop tour to the 5 queens following the Norman conquest. And I generally did enjoy this. I would still recommend picking this up, but the section that I had an issue with was the section where Alison Weir talks about Empress Matilda. As you know, Empress Matilda has very quickly this year become one of my favourite historical figures, and I was so excited to read more about her. And I just didn't think it was anything special. Something that I really loved about Catherine Hanley's biography of Matilda is that she really digs into the medieval sources, and she really challenges the common perception of Matilda as being domineering and demanding. And in comparison, this just didn't feel rigorous enough. Alison Weir just seemed to be taking for granted everything that these medieval chroniclers were saying without considering that maybe they might be very biased. So I was so excited to read her interpretation of Matilda and was just like, But I would still recommend this book, and I do really want to read the follow-up to this, The Queens of the Crusades. Question number 4 is, would we call her chubby? What book do you think gets a bad rep? And to me this year, the book that has gotten a bad rep, in my opinion, is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. This was the follow-up to the very famous Hunger Games trilogy. This is set during the 10th annual Hunger Games and is following the villain of the original series, Coriolanus Snow, but obviously a much, much younger Coriolanus Snow. And I actually quite liked this, and I was surprised to see so many people just panning this. It is definitely very, very different to the original Hunger Games trilogy. It is a lot less action and much more like politically focused. I think if you are much more into like the action of the games, which I am less enamoured by, I could see why you wouldn't like it, because Coriolanus Snow is a mentor, he is not a tribute, so he is not meant to be fighting. And I know for a lot of people, the games are all part of the fun of the Hunger Games. But for me, I was always much more interested in like this dystopian society and how it got to the place that it was. The ways in which the government of Panem like enforced their control over the population. And this answered a lot of questions from the original series for me. I definitely feel like it was a little over long. I can definitely understand why people would have issues with the pacing and feeling like it dragged a lot. I don't think it is as good as the original Hunger Games series, but I feel like I'd seen so many people acting like this was the worst thing that they'd ever read, and it's definitely not that. I feel like the bottom line is, if you are interested in like the action and the actual Hunger Games themselves, then you will be disappointed, but if you are much more interested in like the dystopian society and the conversation about power and politics, then this will be for you. Question number 5 is based around Emma Thompson's most heartbreaking line. Yes, but you've also made a fool out of me. You've made the life I live foolish too. And I really need to rectify something because I forgot to mention just how fantastic Emma Thompson is in this movie. The Both Sides Now scene where she has discovered that her husband Alan Rickman is cheating on her and she leaves the room like nothing is wrong. She goes to her bedroom, has a little bit of a cry while Joni Mitchell's Both Sides Now is playing in the background. And she just quietly bats the tears away and she gets herself together, she composes herself, goes back into the room and acts like nothing is wrong so that her children don't find out. And it's just... it is a masterclass of acting. Anyway, the question to that prompt is, what book made you the most emotional this year? And actually I would have to award that to 2 different books, so I have My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell and The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Which is funny because I'm not typically somebody who gets overly emotional when I read. You know, I will empathise with the characters and I will often think, oh, that's sad, but I won't like have a physical emotional reaction. But this book made me incredibly angry and this book made me cry. Both I gave 5 stars to. Of course, this book is all about a young girl who is groomed by her English teacher, who like 17 years later is having to deal with the trauma of her abuse, despite the fact that she still believes that the relationship she had with her teacher was real love. And there were just so many times when I was reading this that I was so angry with the whole thing. Obviously with the teacher straight away, like I just wanted to leap within the pages of the book and like grab the young girl out of this situation. And then once things started coming to light, I just ended up being angry on a whole other level with the people around her, with her parents, with her school who were not helping her. This whole situation just frustrates me. It makes me so incredibly angry that things like this do happen and nothing is done about it. And then Song of Achilles made me emotional because I cried. I think the thing that gets me with Song of Achilles is that I knew what the ending was because I know this story, but just the inevitability of what is coming made me emotional. And because I knew the ending, I wasn't expecting to cry, but the way that Madeline Miller crafts these characters and really like twists the story that we know, oh, got me so emotional. There is a delivery driver right outside my house and I'm pretty sure that he has paused just to like see what is going on in my room. That's not awkward at all. Question number 6 is Bott-le? What's the best book in translation that you've read this year? I'm going to be really honest with you. I've been pretty bad at reading books in translation this year. In fact, when it comes down to it, like, I've read 3 books that were like either classic or ancient works in translation, and then 1 modern book. So not great. I have read Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. I have read The Odyssey, translated by Emily Wilson. I have read Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, translated by Simon Armitage, and then The Book of Disquiet by Fernando Pessoa. So yeah, not the most diverse selection of translated works. And I mean, if you have been watching my videos over the past few months, then you'll probably know which of those 4 books I'm going to pick. It is The Odyssey, as translated by Emily Wilson. I hadn't read The Odyssey for quite a few years before I picked this up, and I just fell in love with the story all over again. I feel like there are a lot of translations of Homer that just use overly flowery language. I love this translation by Emily Wilson because I feel like it's so clear and clean. I really love how she drew out a lot of the gendered ways in which the Odyssey had previously been translated. You know, a lot of instances of women like Helen of Troy being referred to as a whore when that was not the actual word that was being used in ancient Greek. I'd also never read a verse translation of the Odyssey, and I really enjoyed it this time round. There's also a great introduction in here and loads of bonus material, so if you have never read the Odyssey before and you've always been a little bit intimidated by it, I would definitely say pick this one up. I feel like this would be a great place to start. And then finally, question 7 is, all I want for Christmas is you and you and you. What 3 books are on your Christmas list this year? Now, I am going to be doing a 2021 TBR video, so I don't want to repeat myself too much. So instead, I wanted to talk about some children's books that I have seen recently that I really want to pick up and I want to talk about, but like, I wouldn't throw them into a TBR video because I don't want to read them more than some of the adult books that I would have on that list. But they're just really cute and I want a place to show them. My local independent bookshop has a fantastic children's section, and every single time I go in there, I'm like, I want that and that and that and that. And now that I have a niece and I have a little person in my life to buy children's books for, I am having the best time. First off, I would love to get Athena, the Story of a Goddess. This is written and illustrated by Imogen Greenberg and is of course about the Greek goddess Athena. Discover the adventures of Athena, the ancient Greek goddess of wisdom, war and courage. From her extraordinary birth, sprung from the head of her father, in the midst of a thunderous headache, to her refusal to take no for an answer. Find out how she inspired powerful gods, goddesses and humans, and the terrifying fate of those who dare to cross her path. We then have another history pick, because of course it's me. So we have The Great Fire of London. This is written by Emma Adams and illustrated by James Weston Lewis. In 1666, London citizens woke to see the skyline above their city's cramped wooden houses ablaze. The Great Fire of London is a hauntingly beautiful visual retelling of one of the most well-known disasters in the city's history. To commemorate the 350th anniversary of the fire, powerful and sumptuous drawings from New East London illustrator James Weston Lewis bring the events of November 1666 to life in this stunning gift book. I just think that beautifully illustrated children's books like this are a great way of getting children into history. And then finally, you'll probably have seen the Little People Big Dreams collection, where they do a little bit of a storybook highlighting the lives of many real-life people. I do own the David Attenborough one, but I have to say top of the list for me is the Audrey Hepburn one. I've not really mentioned too much, but I am a massive fan of Audrey Hepburn. In fact, whenever I am filming, this little cushion is right there propping up my phone charger. But yeah, since I was a teenager, I have just admired her so much. As an actress, she always just seemed so elegant and captivating, and she just generally seemed like such a caring, lovely person. But she also had such a heartbreaking early life. She lived in Belgium and the Netherlands during the Nazi occupation. While she was acting, but especially during her later life, she did so much humanitarian work. She lived a fascinating, inspiring, and then in other instances, very tragic life. And I'm always up for learning more about her, whether it is in a full biography or whether it is in a little children's book. But yes, those were all of the questions that were in Grace's Love Actually book tag. I really enjoyed doing this tag, both looking at the different questions that she came up with, but also kind of doing a little bit of like a year in review through these questions. Do let me know any answers that you would give to these questions, and let me know what your favourite line in Love Actually is. I would love to hear from you. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.